My sister borrowed money from me to pay off her debts, but then she acted like she never owed me. Is that a brand new Lexus? My sister owed me $50,000, swore she was broke, and then pulled up in a luxury SUV like it was nothing. I drained my savings to help her money. I worked years to save for my first home. But instead of paying me back, she went on vacations, spa trips, and shopping sprees. And when I confronted her, she said I was being too dramatic. So I did something she never saw coming. Stick around, because you won't believe how I made her regret every single lie. I stood frozen on my front porch, gripping my coffee mug a little too tightly as a sleek black Lexus LX rolled up my driveway like it belonged there. The sun hit its polished surface just right, gleaming in a way that screamed luxury money. Money I knew for a fact my sister, Celeste Monroe, didn't have. The driver's side door swung open, and there she was, stepping out in a pair of designer heels that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She had that effortless, breezy confidence about her, like nothing in the world could touch her. Like she hadn't spent the past year dodging my calls, making excuses, and pushing back the $50. Oh, she still owed me. Rachel, she called out, flashing me that signature Celeste smile, the one she used whenever she was trying to charm her way out of something. Oh my God, isn't she gorgeous? She ran her freshly manicured fingers along the hood, her nails gleaming under the sun. I just got her yesterday. You wouldn't believe the deal I scored. I could barely process what I was looking at. Just 8 months ago, Celeste had been sitting at my kitchen table, tears streaming down her face, telling me she was drowning in debt, that she was weeks away from losing her apartment, that she just needed some help, just this once, and that I was the only person she could trust. And I, like the fool I was, believed her. I had pulled $50,000 from my savings, money I had spent years working for. Late nights, skipped vacations, extra projects on weekends, all for my dream of finally buying my first home. And I had given it to her because she was my sister, because I thought family took care of each other. Now, 8 months later, she was standing in my driveway with a brand new luxury SUV and a smirk on her face, like she hadn't just stolen my future out from under me. You bought a Lexus, I said flatly, my voice barely above a whisper. She laughed. No, silly. I didn't buy it. It's a lease. And it's for work. One needs something reliable for meeting clients. I felt something twist in my gut. You told me you couldn't start paying me back yet. Celeste rolled her eyes, waving a dismissive hand. Rachel, come on. This is different. Leasing a car is smart image, is everything in real estate. And you know how bad my old car was. Her old car was a 3-year-old Audi, which was in perfect condition the last time I saw it. You promised, I said, my voice coming out more strained than I intended. 6 months tops. That's what you said when you took my money. She sighed like I was exhausting her. God, Rachel, you're so uptight about this. You're doing fine. You've always been good with money. It's not like you really need it right now. I actually laughed. A short, humorless sound. Celeste, that was my house down payment. The money you're driving around in, that was supposed to be for my future. She tilted her head like I was being dramatic. Well, maybe that's a sign you should just keep renting. Buying a house is a huge responsibility. She pulled out her phone and checked her reflection in the screen, fixing her lipstick. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm planning a trip to Europe this summer. You should come. Though it might be a bit expensive for you. I just stared at her. I had no words, no response. The sheer audacity of it all, standing in my driveway, in a luxury SUV, with my money, talking about her European vacation, while I was still stuck in a cramped rental because she had bled my savings dry. Actually, I do need the money, I said, my voice steadier now. She sighed dramatically, throwing her hands up. Rachel, you're obsessed with money. It's just money. Family is more important. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. Was she serious? She glanced at her watch. Anyway, I can't stay. I have a spa appointment. We should do lunch soon. She shot me one last dazzling smile before slipping back into the driver's seat, the door closing with a smooth, expensive thud. And then, just like that, she was gone. I stood there long after the sound of her engine faded, my heart hammering against my ribs. Something inside me snapped. A year of excuses, deflections, and broken promises crystallized into something sharp and unmovable. Celeste wasn't just bad with money. She was taking advantage of me, and I had let her do it. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern. When she maxed out her first credit card at 19, my parents had paid it off. When she dropped out of college after 3 expensive semesters, they called it finding her path. Every time she crashed and burned, there had been someone there to catch her, to throw money at the problem so she wouldn't have to face the consequences. And me? I had done everything right. Worked through college, built my career from the ground up, saved carefully. My parents had called me responsible, but the way they said it, it was like it was a flaw. Like being careful with money was less impressive than Celeste's string of reckless, exciting mistakes. I pulled out my phone. There, at the top of my messages, was an unread text from my mom. Mom, Celeste just showed us her new car. Isn't it stunning? She said she got a great deal. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Of course she had. I scrolled up past my mom's messages, past my unanswered texts to Celeste, and stopped at the one from 8 months ago. Celeste, please, Rachel. You're my only hope. I'll pay you back in 6 months tops. I swear on my life. I closed my eyes. I had been such an idiot. Not anymore. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about respect, about family, about finally drawing a line and saying enough. And this time, Celeste was going to learn what happened when you pushed someone too far. I sat on my couch that night, my laptop open on the coffee table, the glow from the screen casting long shadows across my tiny apartment. I wasn't even looking at the screen anymore. My eyes were glued to my bank statements, the numbers burning into my brain. $50,000 gone. Years of saving, years of working overtime, years of planning for something that was supposed to be mine. And Celeste had taken it. Worse, she had spent it like it meant nothing. A Lexus, a spa appointment, a European vacation. The money she had cried over, begged for, sworn she needed to survive, it had gone to fuel her luxury lifestyle. While I was still stuck in a rented one-bedroom apartment, with a leaky faucet and a neighbor who blasted country music at midnight, my phone buzzed beside me. A message from my mom. Mom, Celeste just showed us her new car. Isn't it stunning? She said she got a great deal. I clenched my jaw, staring at the words until they blurred together. She really had them fooled. Celeste could talk her way out of anything. I could already hear my mom's voice if I brought it up, sweetheart. She's had a hard time since the divorce. You know how tough things have been for her. Her divorce was 3 years ago, and she had walked away from it with a fully paid-off condo and a settlement big enough to live comfortably for years if she hadn't spent every last cent of it. But somehow, Celeste was always the victim. I scrolled back through our texts, months and months of excuses. I just had some unexpected expenses this month, Rach. I'll start payments next month. Promise. My car needed major repairs. I can't spare anything right now. I know I said 6 months, but I just need a little more time, okay? Lies. Every single one of them. And I had let her get away with it. Because she was family, because I didn't want to be the bad guy. Because I had been raised to believe that helping your sister was the right thing to do. And Celeste knew that. She counted on it. I tapped open Instagram. There she was, posing beside her Lexus, one hand on her hip, sunglasses perched on her nose. Captioned, work hard, play harder. Boss life, #luxury living, #blessed. I actually laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. Work hard? Celeste had never worked hard a day in her life. My stomach churned as I kept scrolling. Another post from a weekend in Napa Valley. A picture of her nails freshly manicured in some high-end salon. A new pair of designer heels she just had to have. Every single post, every single thing she flaunted, it was bought with my money. I couldn't take it anymore. I hit call. She picked up on the third ring. Rachel. Hey, what's up? What's up? I repeated, barely able to keep my voice even. We need to talk. About my money. She let out an exaggerated sigh. Ugh, Rachel, not this again. You're obsessed with money. Can't you just let it go? I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Celeste, you owe me $50,000. You promised to pay it back in 6 months. It's been 8. And instead of paying me back, I clenched my fist, forcing my voice to stay calm. You're buying luxury cars and booking European vacations. It's just a lease, Rachel. God, you're being so dramatic about this. It's not about the car, I snapped. It's about the fact that you don't think you have to pay me back. She laughed. Rachel, come on. You don't need the money right now. You're doing fine. You've always been good with money. I felt something inside me crack. That money was for my house down payment. Oh my God, Rachel, maybe that's a sign you should just keep renting. Buying a house is like so much responsibility. I stared at my phone in disbelief. You promised, I said, my voice shaking now. You swore you'd pay me back. Well, maybe you shouldn't have given me so much if you couldn't afford to lose it. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you kidding me? She groaned. Look, I can't do this right now. I have dinner reservations. We'll talk later, okay? And just like that, she hung up. I sat there, staring at the call log, my hands shaking with pure, unfiltered rage. I wasn't getting my money back. Not unless I made her. I took a deep breath, then opened my laptop again. This time, I wasn't looking at my bank statements. I was looking up small claims court procedures. Celeste thought she could get away with this. She thought I would do what I'd always done, roll over. Let it go. Let her win. She was wrong. For the first time in my life, I was done playing the good sister. This time, I was fighting back. I finally told Celeste she had 30 days to pay me back, or I'd take her to court. And guess what? She laughed in my face. She was so sure I wouldn't go through with it. But was I really going to let her get away with stealing my future? What do you think I did next? If you think I backed down, comment 1. If you think I took her to court, comment 2. But let me tell you, when the judge saw what I had, Celeste's whole world came crashing down. I sat at my kitchen table, the dim light of the pendant lamp casting long shadows across the room. My laptop was open, a dozen tabs flashing at me, small claims court procedures, formal demand letter templates, legal options for unpaid personal loans. My heart pounded in my chest, my hands clenched into fists as I stared at the screen. I was really doing this. For the first time in my life, I was standing up to Celeste. I took a deep breath and pulled up my email. There they were, months of unanswered messages, each one a reminder of how many chances I had given her. At first, I had been patient. I had believed her when she said she just needed a little more time. But then the excuses started piling up. Sorry, Rach. Work's been slow this month. I'll send something soon. I had to cover some unexpected expenses. I'll get back on track next month. Promise. You know how expensive property taxes are. It's been a nightmare. But I haven't forgotten, I swear. And yet, she had money for a brand new Lexus, designer handbags, weekend getaways, and salon visits. I exhaled sharply, forcing my hands to unclench. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about respect, boundaries, consequences. Celeste had spent her entire life charming, manipulating, and guilt-tripping her way out of responsibility. But not this time. I clicked on a blank document and began typing. Dear Celeste, this is a formal request for repayment of the $50,000 loan extended to you on date. You agreed to repay this amount within 6 months, but 8 months have now passed, and no payments have been made. If I do not receive full payment within 30 days, I will pursue legal action. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. It felt cold, distant, like I was drafting a letter to a stranger, not my own sister. But what choice did I have? I had tried reasoning with her. I had tried being patient. And where had that gotten me? I pressed send. The moment the email disappeared from my screen, my pulse quickened. There was no going back now. I stared at my phone, waiting for the explosion. Celeste wouldn't ignore this. She'd rage, scream, gaslight, play the victim. I knew her playbook by heart, but an hour passed. Then 2, then 5. By the next morning, still nothing. That was when I knew Celeste wasn't scared. She was calling my bluff. I wasn't bluffing. I dug through my drawers until I found what I was looking for: the napkin. The stupid little cocktail napkin from the night she had sat at my kitchen table, her eyes swollen from fake tears, and scribbled out her so-called repayment plan. 6 months tops, I swear. She had even written the exact amounts she would pay back each month. She had signed it. I snapped a photo of it, adding it to my growing folder of evidence. My bank statements, the wire transfer receipts, the texts, the emails, the Instagram screenshots of her #luxury living lifestyle, proof that she had money for everything except her debts. I was building my case, piece by piece, until it was undeniable. Later that afternoon, my phone finally rang. Celeste. I answered on the second ring. Hello? She sighed loudly, like this was the biggest inconvenience of her life. Rachel, what the hell is this email? I kept my voice calm. Exactly what it says. You owe me 50 grand, Celeste. Pay it back, or I take legal action. You're being insane about this, she scoffed. You don't sue family over money. You don't steal from family either. Oh my God, I didn't steal from you. You gave me that money. You were happy to help at the time. I was happy to help someone who was in crisis, I snapped. Not fund your luxury shopping and vacations while I'm stuck in a damn rental, because you bled my savings dry. She went silent for a beat. Then her tone shifted, soft, wounded, manipulative. Rachel, come on. We're sisters. Do you really want to ruin our relationship over money? My throat tightened. That was the thing. Celeste didn't actually care about our relationship. She only cared about what I could do for her. I'm giving you 30 days, I said. After that, we're going to court. Celeste let out a sharp laugh. Yeah? And how do you think that's gonna go? Do you really think a judge is gonna side with you over your own sister? Yes, I said simply. I do. Another beat of silence. Then she hissed. Fine. See you in court. And she hung up. I exhaled, my hand shaking slightly as I set my phone down. This was it. The war had officially begun. I had barely set my phone down before it started vibrating again this time. It was Mom. Of course. Celeste hadn't wasted a second. She must have called the cavalry the moment she hung up. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm before answering. Rachel. Mom's voice was sharp, the way it always was when she thought I was being difficult. What is this nonsense about suing your sister? I clenched my jaw. Here we go. It's not nonsense, Mom. Celeste owes me $50,000 and refuses to pay me back. She said she would, Mom shot back, like that meant anything. Yeah? Then why hasn't she? It's been 8 months. She's had more than enough time. Mom sighed like I was being unreasonable. Honey, she's going through a rough time. If you say a rough time one more time, I swear to God, I snapped. She's not struggling, Mom. She's thriving. She just leased a Lexus. She's planning a European vacation. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in a rental apartment because she drained my house fund. She needed that car for work, Mom said weakly. And the vacation, well, you know how stressful things have been for her. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I know. It must be so hard to keep up with her weekly spa visits and designer shopping sprees. Rachel, Mom said, and her voice dropped into that careful, placating tone she always used when I was being too emotional. You're making too big a deal out of this. You're doing fine. You don't need the money right now. My stomach turned. That was it. That was the core of it. They all thought that because I was responsible, because I had worked hard, because I hadn't screwed up my life like Celeste had, I could afford to take the hit. It was like they saw me as some bottomless safety net, always there to cushion Celeste's falls. I don't need the money, I repeated, my voice rising. Are you hearing yourself right now? That was my future. That was my house down payment. And you're acting like it's spare change just because Celeste wanted it more than I did. She's your sister, Mom said, like that was supposed to justify everything. Family helps each other. No, I said coldly. I help. Celeste takes. Silence. Then, softer, sweetheart, please don't do this. If you go through with this lawsuit, it'll ruin our family. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. No, Mom. Celeste ruined this family when she decided my money was hers to spend. Mom let out a shaky breath. Rachel, can't we just work something out? Your father and I, we could help. Maybe we can figure out a payment plan that doesn't involve courts. No, my voice was steel. This isn't about you fixing another one of Celeste's messes. This is about her facing the consequences of her own choices. Mom sniffled. I just don't understand why you're being so aggressive about this. I shut my eyes and counted to 3. She just doesn't get it. She never will. Good night, Mom. I hung up before she could say anything else. I set my phone down, my pulse pounding. I had expected this. I knew they would defend her, protect her, try to guilt me into backing down. But actually hearing it, actually realizing that they would rather let Celeste screw me over than force her to take responsibility, it was a different kind of pain. My phone vibrated again. A text from Dad this time. Dad, let's talk about this before things get out of hand. No need for lawyers. I threw my head back and groaned. Of course. They were going to tag team me now. I ignored it. I grabbed my laptop and started organizing my evidence. Every bank transfer receipt, text message, email, Instagram screenshot, all of it. If Celeste wanted a war, she was going to get one. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Celeste's voice, dripping with entitlement. You don't need the money right now, Rachel. My mother's exasperated sigh. She's your sister. Family helps each other. My father's text, neutral but full of unspoken judgment. No need for lawyers. Like I was the one making this ugly. Like I was the unreasonable one. By the time the sun came up, I was already at my laptop, pulling every last piece of evidence together. The wire transfer receipt, the text messages, the emails, the Instagram screenshots, the napkin. It was all there, a crystal clear pattern of Celeste taking. I wasn't bluffing. And Celeste was about to find out exactly what that meant. By noon, I had a formal demand letter printed and ready to send by certified mail. My hands trembled slightly as I sealed the envelope, but I set my jaw and drove straight to the post office. As I watched the clerk stamp the receipt, a strange sense of relief washed over me. This was happening. This was real. By that evening, the fallout had already begun. First, my phone started lighting up. Calls, texts, voicemails, all from Celeste. I ignored them. If she had anything to say, she could say it in writing. Then came the group chat explosion. Celeste had obviously rallied the troops, our aunts, cousins, even distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Aunt Marie, sweetheart, suing your own sister? Is that really necessary? Cousin Lisa, come on, Rachel. She's family. You don't take family to court. Uncle Ron, wow. Guess money is more important than blood to some people. I stared at the messages, my stomach twisting. Celeste was weaponizing the family against me, just like she always did, turning herself into the victim, making me the villain. And they were falling for it. I gritted my teeth, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. My first instinct was to defend myself, to explain. But then I stopped. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I exited the group chat and muted notifications. An hour later, my phone vibrated again. A new text from Celeste. Celeste, oh my God, Rachel. Are you really doing this? You're actually threatening me over money? I inhaled slowly, steadying myself before replying. I'm not threatening you. I'm enforcing an agreement. You have 30 days. She didn't text back. Instead, she went straight to our parents. By the next morning, Mom was calling me again. This time, she wasn't pleading, she was furious. Rachel, how dare you send your sister a legal letter? What is wrong with you? I took a deep breath. Mom, she had 8 months to start paying me back. She didn't. This is the next step. You are tearing this family apart, Mom yelled. I felt something inside me snap. No, Mom. Celeste did that when she spent my money on a luxury SUV and a spa membership instead of paying me back. She needed that car for work. Then she should have paid for it with her own damn money. Silence. Then a defeated sigh. Rachel, you really won't let this go, will you? No, I said, voice steady. I won't. Mom sniffled, like she was on the verge of tears. You're going to regret this. I swallowed hard. Maybe. But not as much as I would have regretted letting Celeste get away with it. The next few days were eerily quiet. Too quiet. Celeste had gone radio silent, which meant one of two things: either she was plotting or she was panicking. Knowing her, probably both. I half expected her to show up at my doorstep in full meltdown mode. But instead, she was lurking, waiting, seeing if I would back down. I wouldn't. Instead, I doubled down. I spent my nights combing through every piece of evidence, refining my timeline, and preparing for every possible excuse. Celeste might try to throw at me. I was ready. Then, 3 days before the 30-day deadline, Celeste finally made her move. It started with a random text from Dad, short and to the point. Dad, come by the house tonight. We need to talk. I already knew what that meant. A family intervention. I debated ignoring it, but I wasn't about to let Celeste control the narrative without me there to shut it down. So I went. When I walked in, the house smelled like garlic bread and red sauce, which meant Mom had cooked Celeste's favorite meal. Of course she had. Because in my family, when Celeste screwed up, we didn't hold her accountable. We made her pasta. Celeste was already sitting at the kitchen table, arms crossed, looking irritated, like I was the one wasting her time. Dad was next to her, his expression carefully neutral, and Mom was standing at the stove. Stirring sauce like this was some normal family dinner and not an ambush. I pulled out a chair and sat. All right, I said. Let's talk. Dad cleared his throat, like he was preparing a speech. Rachel, we've been thinking, and we have a proposal. He pulled out his checkbook. Your mother and I are willing to cover half of what Celeste owes you. You can drop the case, and we can put this whole ugly business behind us. I stared at him. Then at Mom, who gave me a tight, hopeful smile. Then at Celeste, who unsurprisingly looked completely unbothered. I let out a slow breath. No. Mom's smile faltered. Rachel, no. I leaned forward. You want to pay half of Celeste's debt so she can walk away without consequences? Again, Dad sighed. It's not about letting her walk away. It's about keeping this family together. I shook my head, my jaw tightening. No. It's about keeping Celeste comfortable. And I'm done making her life easier at my expense. Celeste let out a dramatic groan. Oh my God, Rachel. Why are you like this? You're being so... I turned to her sharply. Shut up. Her mouth snapped closed. I held up my hands. You know what? Let's talk about fairness. Because when I needed help after college, you had a spare bedroom in your paid-off condo, and you told me I needed to learn independence. I gestured at Dad. And when you bought that condo, Mom and Dad gave you the down payment. I didn't get a cent when I started saving from my own home. Mom's face reddened. Rachel, that's different, how? My voice was sharp, cutting. Explain it to me, Mom. Explain why Celeste always gets a safety net and I get a lecture on personal responsibility. Silence. Celeste rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Rachel, stop being so bitter. You were always the responsible one. I laughed actual, genuine laughter. You say that like it was a choice. I wasn't born more responsible, Celeste. I just wasn't given the luxury of screwing up and knowing someone else would clean up my mess. More silence. Celeste scoffed. Fine. Whatever. Take me to court, then. Let's see how Mom and Dad feel about that. I held her gaze. They already think I'm materialistic, right? I shrugged. Might as well prove them right. Celeste shoved her chair back so hard it screeched against the floor. You know what? Do whatever you want. You're so obsessed with money, fine. But don't expect me to ever forgive you for this. She grabbed her purse and stormed out. Mom looked heartbroken. Dad looked uncomfortable. I just felt tired. I stood up, pushing my chair back. I'll see you in court. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The morning of the court hearing, I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My body was exhausted, but my mind was sharp, electric with anticipation. Today was the day. Today, Celeste would finally have to face reality, not Mom, not Dad, not another excuse, not another bailout. Just her, a judge, and the cold, hard truth. I dressed carefully. Nothing flashy, nothing aggressive. Just professional, competent, unshakable. I wanted to look like someone who deserved to win. Someone who wasn't to be taken lightly. When I arrived at the courthouse, Jenny was already waiting for me. My cousin had been my biggest supporter through this entire mess. Her lawyer husband helping me navigate the legal steps, making sure I had everything airtight. She gave me a reassuring smile. You ready? I exhaled, rolling my shoulders back. More than ready. As we stepped inside, I spotted Celeste at the other end of the hallway, leaning against a wall, scrolling through her phone like this was just another errand on her to-do list. But when she looked up and saw me, something flickered in her eyes, discomfort, maybe even fear. She had dressed expensively, not wisely, a designer blazer, heels that were way too high for a courtroom, a brand new handbag that probably cost more than my rent. She wanted to make an impression, to look successful, untouchable. But that wasn't what mattered here. Celeste pushed off the wall, walking toward me with forced confidence. This is ridiculous, she said, keeping her voice low, like she could still somehow handle this before we went inside. You know that, right? I tilted my head. What's ridiculous? Holding you accountable? She sighed dramatically, like I was exhausting her. Rachel, you're taking this way too far. You could have just let it go. My stomach twisted, not with doubt, but with anger. Celeste, you are the one who let this happen. You made this choice. She scoffed. Oh my God, it's just money. That did it. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear me. It wasn't just money, Celeste. It was my future. While you were getting facials and sipping wine in Napa, I was watching my dream slip through my fingers because of you. She blinked, thrown off, but quickly recovered, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Whatever. You're gonna look pathetic in there, suing your own sister over some stupid loan. I smiled. We'll see. The courtroom was small but intimidating. The judge seated behind a tall wooden bench, already flipping through the case file when we were called forward. I took my seat. Celeste sat across from me. She didn't look at me. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, adjusted her glasses. Miss Monroe, she addressed Celeste, you received a personal loan of $50,000 from your sister. Do you dispute this? Celeste straightened. It wasn't a loan, it was help. I thought family. The judge held up a hand. I'm not interested in emotional appeals. Was there an expectation of repayment? I opened my folder, sliding the napkin agreement forward. She wrote this herself, I said. She promised to repay me in 6 months. It's been 8. I also have text messages and emails confirming the debt. The judge examined the napkin, her expression unreadable. Celeste shifted uncomfortably. Miss Monroe, the judge said, did you write this? Celeste forced a tight smile. Well, Yeah, but, and have you made any payments toward the amount owed? She hesitated. I. I was going to, but the judge turned another page in the file. I see evidence of luxury purchases during this period. A new vehicle, vacations, designer goods. She looked up, unimpressed. Monroe, are you telling me you had money for these expenses, but not for your debt? Celeste flushed. It's not like that. The car is a lease. I needed it for work. The judge didn't react. This court takes a very dim view of individuals who demonstrate blatant disregard for their financial obligations. Your sister provided substantial proof of both the loan and your ability to repay it. Celeste paled. Therefore, the judge continued, I rule in favor of the plaintiff. You are ordered to repay the full amount of $50,000 within 90 days. Celeste gasped. 90 days? That's impossible. I don't have that kind of money. The judge closed the file. Perhaps you should consider selling your new car. I bit back a smile as Celeste sat there, speechless. As I stepped out of the courtroom, the weight on my chest lifted, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Celeste stormed out behind me, her designer heels clicking sharply against the polished floor, her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and fury. She barely made it into the hallway before she spun around to face me, her hands clenched into fists. Are you happy now? She hissed, her voice low but seething. You humiliated me in there. I met her gaze, unflinching. No, Celeste, you humiliated yourself. Her mouth twisted into a sneer. You've always been jealous of me. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You hate that I know how to enjoy life while you sit at home counting pennies like some miserable... I let out a sharp laugh, cutting her off. Jealous? Of what, exactly? Being financially reckless? Living in constant denial? Blowing through money that wasn't even yours? Her eyes flashed, her hands gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. You don't understand anything. I needed that money, Rachel. I was drowning. I thought you save it, I said coldly. I've heard all your excuses. You weren't drowning, you were spending. And you thought I'd just roll over and let you get away with it like everyone else always does. Her nostrils flared. You don't even need the money right now. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. It was never about the money, Celeste. It was about respect. Something you clearly don't have for me. She scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. Fine, you got what you wanted, but don't expect me to ever forgive you for this. I held her gaze, unfazed. I didn't ask for your forgiveness. I asked for my money. She let out an angry breath, then spun on her heel and stormed away, her heels clicking furiously against the tile. As I stood there, watching her disappear into the crowd, I realized something. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. The old me might have. The old me might have second-guessed everything. Worried about how this would affect the family. Wondered if I should have just let it go to keep the peace. But that version of me, she didn't exist anymore. This wasn't just about holding Celeste accountable. It was about holding myself accountable too, for all the times I had let people walk over me, for all the times I had put others' comfort above my own well-being, for all the times I had chosen to keep the peace instead of standing up for myself. I had changed, and I wasn't going back. I expected the fallout to be bad, but I hadn't braced myself for just how bad it would be. The moment the ruling came down, Celeste went nuclear. She didn't just rage at me in the hallway. She took it to the entire family, painting me as a cold-hearted, greedy, unforgiving monster. Within hours, my phone was flooded with messages. Aunt Marie? Rachel? Sweetheart, did you really have to take this to court? She's your sister. Cousin Lisa, wow, suing your own blood. That's next-level petty. Uncle Ron, guess money really is more important than family, huh? It was like Celeste had pressed a button and unleashed an army of flying monkeys, all spouting the same guilt-ridden script. I didn't respond. I refused to explain myself. to beg for understanding from people who had never once held Celeste accountable. They weren't interested in the truth. They were interested in keeping things comfortable for her, but the real blow came when my mother called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I knew she wouldn't stop until I picked up. "Rachel," she said, her voice already thick with disappointment. "I just don't understand how you could do this to your own sister." I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my temple. "Mom, she stole from me." "She didn't steal." "Yes, she did," I snapped. "She took my money under false pretenses and refused to pay it back. That's theft, whether you want to call it that or not." Mom let out a shaky sigh. "Rachel, she had to sell her car." I almost laughed. "Good. She had to, Mom, because that was the consequence of her choices. She's devastated." "I bet she is," I said, my voice sharp. "I bet it's really hard for her to face the fact that she can't just talk her way out of everything." Mom hesitated. "She had to cancel her trip to Europe." I actually did laugh this time. "You're telling me this like it's supposed to make me feel bad." "She's embarrassed, Rachel. She's struggling at work now that people know about the lawsuit, Mom." I cut her off, my patience gone. "You really want to talk about embarrassment?" Because I spent the last year embarrassed every time I checked my bank account, every time I had to remind myself that my house fund was gone. I spent the last year struggling because of her. So if Celeste is finally feeling an ounce of what she put me through, I shrugged. "I can live with that." Mom let out a choked sound, like I had physically hurt her. "You're not the daughter I raised." Something inside me hardened. "You're right, I'm not." And I was glad. I hung up before she could say anything else. For weeks, the tension simmered. My parents tried one last time to get me to drop the case, offering to pay Celeste's debt on her behalf. I refused. I told them if they did, I'd name them as co-defendants for attempting to obstruct the judgment. They backed off real quick. Celeste made the payments grudgingly, in installments, acting like every transfer was a personal attack against her. But she paid. And 6 months later, when the final payment hit my account, I cried. Not because of the money, because of what it represented. It wasn't about winning in court. It was about winning back my self-respect, about proving to myself that I wasn't just the family doormat anymore. And when I took that money and closed on my first home, I didn't feel even a flicker of guilt. I felt free. Celeste thought she could walk all over me until she had to sell her car just to pay me back. For the first time in her life, she faced real consequences. And me, I finally stood my ground. So let me ask you, have you ever been screwed over by someone who thought they'd never get caught? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because, trust me, this isn't the last time. Someone learns a hard lesson about messing with the wrong person. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Never loan money without a contract, even to family. People will take advantage of kindness, especially when they think you'll never hold them accountable. Financial responsibility isn't a weakness. It's a necessity. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you strong. In America, where hard work builds futures, protecting what you've earned is not greed, it's survival. If someone refuses to respect your boundaries, cut them off. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal, and family doesn't mean you're an ATM. If they want your help, let them earn it.